What role do you think Bitcoin culture will play in the kind of future adoption acceptance of Bitcoin? Because there's parts, there is no longer a single Bitcoin culture. I think you could argue there perhaps was, or quite a singular culture in the very early days. And I think it's fractured, and I think there's multiple subcultures. But there are consistent threads, consistent strands, consistent ideas. But there's quite an anti-government, anti-state side of Bitcoin at a time where we've got the state, we've got regulatory scope creep coming from the state at the same time. Do you think there's a need for culture to adapt and change, or how do you think about that whole area? Because we spoke in advance that we would maybe discuss Bitcoin culture,
and that's part of why why I got involved with PubKey and the Ski Summit and the policy. I think it's time for us, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. A lot of us come to Bitcoin because we didn't fit in the current systems that exist, or we ask why, right? Mm-hmm. And whether that means we're, for me, dyslexic or whatever someone's thing is, we just see things a little bit differently, or just can't conform to the norm,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that helps, that pain or that struggle or that difficulty, maybe younger in age, that might have caused some trauma, right? Or some self-esteem, or whatever the issues are. It's now we found this thing, and we found our tribe, right? Or subculture within something larger, and a larger mission, and are very passionate about it. So it's hard. It's hard when life was hard for so long, and now you have your aha moment, not to rub it in people's faces, or not to project fear, shame, or guilt that maybe you had projected onto you when you were younger. So I think it's time, for us to go in, so that we can be better out. So I hope, more Bitcoiners can, go in, especially during the bear market. It's a perfect time, right? Go spend time in nature, somatic work. Whatever it is, Rolfing. I think there's so many different modalities that people can try and experiment with right now, because we're going to need those tools, especially as the centralized entities like the FDA gives us fewer and fewer options. I think there's a real connection, overlap with a Venn diagram between holistic, the holistic health world, right? Or wellness world, and Bitcoin. I mean, we already know probably shouldn't eat seed oils, right?
Yeah.
We figure these things out just through research and the network effect of enough people doing the research to validate these ideas. And so I hope that we can, one thing that I really love is I haven't had alcohol in 8 years. So I think the more kind of inward we can go and clean up our streets, right? Our individual houses. I think that will help us be more powerful in bringing, the next wave of Bitcoiners in with a very values-based, approach, versus this number go up, FOMO, fiat. I really don't enjoy bull cycles, honestly. They're brutal.
I know. I feel a little bit embarrassed about. I used to do this tweet thread that still exists. Every time I went up $1,000, I would retweet the last one and go up, and it's now I just felt like such a dick for it.
We'll see at 65K.
69. We got up to 69, didn't we?
Did we? I don't know.
69K.
Not 69 for 20 though. I know. Soon.
Didn't it go 69 and crash to 42?
I didn't think it got that high.
I think it crashed from 69 to 42,000.
We're trying so hard.
No, I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just under 69.
And then to what? 42?
Well, I mean, at some point between...
No, but it wasn't very quickly to 42.
Yeah, you're right, actually. It was in 2 weeks or something.
Yeah. It's kind of come on, man. 8 years, no alcohol. That's impressive.
Yeah.
You know I've given up drinking.
Oh, I didn't know actually.
Yeah, I stopped.
That's amazing.
Stopped at the start of the year,
Yeah, bravo.
and I refused to say I was doing like dry January because
Yeah.
I kind of said I want to do dry 2023. I
Yeah.
thought I'd see how the first month would go, and I'll report back on the end of the year how I've done. But you know how some people do it? It's like, oh, I've got to give up, and they try and give up for the month and
Yeah.
get through. It's been a relief
Yeah.
not drinking,
Yeah.
and I've drunk a lot in my life.
Yeah. Same.
And not I didn't give up because it's like any kind of alcoholic. I don't drink a lot at home, but when we used to do these trips, I'd drink on the flight, and then we'd hang out together. I drink most days,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's just gone, and I'm not missing it. I'm not feeling like, oh, I want to drink. I just don't. I'm just cool with it. It's
Yeah.
a weird thing.
It's freeing.
I think sometimes you get to a point. It was like when I used to take drugs. I couldn't like smoke weed. When I was younger, I used to smoke weed,
Yeah.
and I wanted to give up, and I just never did. And then one day I just did, and there was like the time was right. Same
Yeah.
with cocaine, same with alcohol. Like it's just had it. There's a time it's had its time.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely liberating.
Also, like thinking of it this way, alcohol is a depressant, so it's a very low vibe. Like it brings you down,
Oh, it never did that for me actually.
Yeah.
Apart from a hangover would.
Well, hangover, but I think over time, like once it's out of, for me, once it was out of my system for like a year, I was like, oh, I sleep better, life is easier, things are flowing, not everything's a struggle. Like it just became easier. I mean, I started drinking when I was 12. I was in 7th grade. Like my friends, I mean, this is crazy, but my friends,
12.
12.
Shit, that's my daughter's age.
I know. I got myself kicked out of Gifted and Talented. Like I was bad. My mom almost sent me to boarding school, but she didn't know what was going on because I was still able to hide it. Like, because it was just on the weekends, but it was totally, I mean, it just took me down fast, right? So
12.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I was a
Jesus.
special kid, right? Yeah, who knew? Like, who would expect that? But I think, kids, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think a lot of Bitcoiners have these things. And so it's like, where did it come from? You know, how do you like heal it within yourself? Because until you do that, we're not going to be able to build the future in the most amazing way we can, right? We see this bigger vision. To get to that, you also got to leave your stuff behind to like get to it.
It's so funny. It just makes me think of that first time we met, and I turn up at like 1. I still think it was midday, and it's like we had to wait for the interview. I was like, I'm gonna have a drink. Do you want one? You're like, no. I was like, well, I get a whiskey sour or an old fashioned. You must be thinking, you fucking degenerate.
I don't care. I don't care what other people do. I just care what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think there's lots of different subcultures or different aspects of Bitcoin culture. And a fiat gets attached to a lot of it all. And sometimes I find it a bit cringy, but there is like diet. The alcohol is one thing.
Yeah.
Exercise.
Yeah.
How you exercise. Approach to building businesses. What is ethical, what is not ethical.
Yeah.
Are
you a high time preference or a low time preference? VC, no VC, like that?
Yeah. And that was quite interesting actually, because we interviewed Danny Scott when we were in London, wasn't it? Yeah, he was from Coin Corner. And he was like, yeah, we've never raised any money. We have no one to answer to. We just do our thing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was super interesting. I guess that's a consistent thread part of the Bitcoin culture, because it's intrinsically tied to holding Bitcoin is time preference. And so I think a lot of these things are kind of natural. Where I think the culture is fragmented, but I think there's 2 parts of the culture that are fragmented. I think there's competing ideologies, whether you are, somebody who believes in democracy like myself or somebody who is an anarcho-capitalist. That is a competing ideology. But I think right now we're seeing a resurgence of the competing ideology of the role of block space.
We're going there?
We
You're
are
going to
going-
make me talk about ordinals, aren't you?
We don't even have to talk about ordinals.
Okay.
I actually wrote a list, and this is something that's quite interesting to compare to the ETH weirdos. Everything that happens on ETH is seen as opportunity and seems to be like everyone's aligned. Oh, there's this new thing. Let's do it and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Everything that's done on Bitcoin is seen as, oh no, this is a threat. Why? Like, don't trust verify.
Yeah.
And there's just two. Would you say I'm being fair there, Danny?
Yeah, I get what you mean. You mean because they're not worried about block space and
I think it's build fast, break things.
yeah, totally.
Whereas I think Bitcoins have like moved slow, like what is it, like a glacier, moves slow.
Yeah.
It's hard to change, and it's competing. So, whatever the new fucking idea is on ETH, whatever it'll be next time. We've had ICOs and NFTs and exchange tokens.
I think there's IFOs now.
What's an IFO?
I don't know. I thought it was a UFO, and I read something.
Oh yeah,
wrong,
what could
but
be
it's
an
an
IFO?
IFO?
Look up this shit. Don't it? But like, it's always a new thing. It's like they're always and I think what it is like, I think ETH is essentially a solution for trying to find a problem.
So, okay. So, yeah, Bitcoin has a product market fit with hard money you can't
Fuck
right?
with.
Yeah.
You can swear.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks.
Jason Williams.
I know. He's a trip.
But yeah, so because they haven't found that consistent like use case because Bitcoin did it first and they didn't do it as well, they're always trying to find something. What's an IFO?
I can't find it.
Okay.
You just make that up.
No, I'll show you later. It was in an article.
And so like whatever the next thing is, like we've got another use case, let's do it. Like NFTs, like whatever the fuck. And whereas with Bitcoin, they had product market fit from day one.
Yeah.
No, that's not fair. That's not fair. I can't say when they have product market fit, but they have product market fit now. It is sound money, censorship resistant money, like fully decentralized. Yeah. And so like anything that comes in that fucks with that, it's like, well, why?
Yeah.
And so I've got the list, like, firstly, it's alts themselves as a threat. Like, why do you want an alt? You only need Bitcoins for maximalism. We had block size back in 2017. We've recently had zero conf as a debate. And I've got a lot of empathy towards John Carvalho's position on that, a lot of empathy towards Sergey from Bitrefill. That was a use case that's got removed for whatever reason. And now we have ordinals. But what's interesting is that this fractures the Bitcoin community around ideas.
I think really deep down, it's like, what is the market going to decide as well, right? At the same time, there's value in protecting the integrity of the base layer and keeping, I see both sides of it. And that's the hard part, right? So I'm like, I'm not trying to be like friends with everyone. I'm like, I don't have the answer either right now. And so it's like, I'm just trying to keep track of both sides of this. The way I think of, it, Bitcoin compared to alts and fiat for that, right? I think of it like music in a way. So you have in an orchestra, you have the bass, right? So maybe that's the blockchain, right? That's the ledger. Then you have the open source technology, we'll make that the triangle. And then the cello is maybe, the every 10 minutes, TikTok, next block, right? And you've got all of these different aspects, this immaculate conception, maybe that's the horn. All of this, to me is like Beethoven's Symphony No. 5. And then you look behind the curtain with fiat and alts, and it's like, this is 2 a.m. KTV, like 2 a.m. karaoke, or Nickelback, or
Nickelback. When I first time I ever came to went to the West Coast, I drove from LA to San Francisco, got to the Golden Gate Bridge, and as I was coming up to the Golden Gate Bridge, I had Nickelback was playing on the radio, and I was like, I cannot fucking cross the Golden Gate Bridge, listen to Nickelback. So I quickly got AC/DC Highway to Hell on.
Okay, good.
Fucking Nickelback.
Commercial's better than
Jesus.
Nickelback.
I'd rather have
Sorry.
white noise.
Poor Nickelback.
I get it. Like, so on the ordinals thing.
By the way, before that, it's initial farm offering.
A what?
For like DeFi farming.
I told you.
Initial farm offering for DeFi farming. Fuck this shit.
It's really bad timing because DeFi is like a very low hanging fruit. Like that's the interesting part about Bitcoin is there are all these other things around it that are kind of a moat. So I get the attack vector, speaking of ordinals, of, the attack vector on the policy side with ordinals could be, if there's stuff that's on the chain, we can come after it now, right? So I get that. I completely get that. at the same time, voted Taproot in. So it's kind of a conundrum, right?
So, I mean, look, for a thicko like me, this is an unintended consequence of Taproot, or people
I
already
don't
knew?
know. I think
Because I think it's like,
think
why
it's-
is it only just now that people are figure this out and debating it?
I don't know. Who knows how there's like a critical mass of these things behind the scene as well, right?
I mean, the funny thing is one of those things where I haven't really chirped up on it yet because I was talking about it earlier to Ben Prentice. I kind of don't care, but I'm starting to care. In that, when I first saw it, I was like, I don't care if people want to put JPEGs on Bitcoin. I'm not going to buy them. I think it's stupid, but I don't care.
Yeah.
And like when I saw somebody say, yeah, somebody's paid 9.5 Bitcoin for like a punk, I was like, they probably didn't. They probably sold it to themselves. Like, come on, get a grip.
Yeah, just like the
Yeah,
previous
exactly.
NFT.
And then when people are like saying, like it's a waste of block space, I was like, I don't care. Like I can still get my things in the blocks. But actually, what I really care about Bitcoin's so simple, right? Mm-hmm. So when I explained to somebody, I was like, I steal something that John Pfeffer told me. John Pfeffer told, you know John, right? John's a great guy. So like he told me about the first time he met Wences and how Wences orange pilled him. He said, money is a ledger. Bitcoin is the best ledger ever created. And it's like, when I explain it to people, I say, Bitcoin just does one thing really well. It allows you to send value from one person to another. It is very secure. I can send it to you instantly, and it's got no middleman. So I get them to download a wallet, and I send them some Bitcoin, and it instantly appears, and I say to them, that happened without going through any centralized entity.
Yeah.
And you hold that Bitcoin. Show me your bank balance. You don't own that. This is literally, you've got control of that Bitcoin. No one can take it from you unless you lose your private key. I was like, it does that very well. And that's why I think we got product market fit so well, because Bitcoin is just so simple and pure in how it does that. When I see this ordinals thing now, I think it kind of clouds that a little bit. It's like, oh, Bitcoin does two things really well now. It moves value around and like allows us to send JPEGs. And a lot of the people kind of defending ordinals, there's like two main, it's kind of three main defenses, like free market, all right, fuck off. The second one has been like, but it's making, it's using up block space, so it's, minor rewards have improved. And I'm like, yeah, but like that's time preference. And then what was the third thing? I think it's an opportunity for people who aren't like maximalists to poke the maximalist bear. Like to have a go, haha, look, we've got Taproot wizards, haha, we got this, like, haha, fuck you, we can do what we want with it. I know you hate it, so we like it. It's becoming like a trolly thing.
Maybe, but I think it's also like this is an open source technology, and if the rules exist to do something, then exploring that is we're explorers, right? And innovators. So it's hard to say, no.